Nadia Osei had always believed that the worst moments in life announced themselves. She had imagined betrayal would arrive with raised voices, slammed doors, or at least a slow and obvious unraveling she could prepare for. She was wrong. It arrived on a Tuesday evening in October, quietly, the way a light bulb goes out, one moment bright, the next simply gone. She had come home early from a healthcare conference in the next city. The keynote speaker had gone on too long, the hotel bed had been lumpy, and she had missed her own pillow with a particular urgency that only comes after too many nights away. She had not called ahead. She had not thought to. She used her key. The door swung open to the smell of takeout she hadn't ordered, and a pair of shoes in the hallway that were not hers. Small details, the kind that take a second to arrange themselves into meaning. And then the meaning arrived, and it was plain and complete, and Nadia stood very still in her own doorway for what felt like a long time. She did not raise her voice. She did not cry. She simply picked up her keys from the hook beside the door, the same hook Marcus had installed on a Sunday morning 2 years ago, cheerful and proud of himself with a power drill, and she walked back out. She sat in her car for 11 minutes. She knew because she watched the clock on the dashboard without really seeing it. Then she started the engine and drove to a hotel downtown, and she sat on the edge of the bed in room 214 and thought very carefully about what came next. By Thursday morning, she had made 3 phone calls. One to her building manager about subletting her half of the lease, one to her clinic director requesting a transfer to the satellite office in Harrowfield, 2 hours north, and one to her brother, Kofi, a family attorney with a calm voice and the useful habit of asking no unnecessary questions. "I need to talk to you," she said. "Not tonight, but soon." "I'll be home Sunday," Kofi said. "Come for dinner." She packed 2 suitcases and a box of books. She left behind the furniture, the shared crockery, the framed photographs on the shelf. She took her laptop, her files, her grandmother's bracelet from the bedside drawer, and the small potted succulent on the kitchen windowsill that Marcus had always ignored, but she had quietly loved for 3 years. She did not leave a note. Marcus called 4 times over the following week. She let each call go to voicemail and listened to the messages only once. The first was defensive. The second was apologetic. The third was something caught between the two, which was, she had always thought, his most natural register. The fourth was quiet, just her name, and then a long pause, and then nothing. She did not call back. In Harrowfield, she rented a 1-bedroom flat above a bakery on Clement Street. The smell of bread in the mornings was, she decided, a reasonable substitute for most things she had lost. She found a therapist named Dr. Anand, a small, precise woman who had the habit of letting silences stretch until they became useful. She ran 3 mornings a week along the river path. She called her mother on Sundays. She did not post anything on social media. She did not update her location anywhere. She did not disappear because she was broken. She disappeared because she was thinking. Back in the city she had left, a different story was being told. Without her version of events, the space filled in the way spaces always do, with whatever was available. Marcus told people the relationship had simply ended, that Nadia had not handled it well. He said this without cruelty, or at least without obvious cruelty, and because he was present and she was not, people arranged their sympathies accordingly. Mutual friends sent him careful texts. A few asked after Nadia, and were told she had moved away and needed space. Her closest friend, Priya, tried harder than most. She called twice, sent 3 messages, and when she received nothing back, she did what she could, which was worry quietly and hope that Nadia knew what she was doing. Priya had known Nadia since university. She knew that Nadia did not do anything without reason. She waited. What no one in that city knew, what Nadia had discovered 6 weeks before that Tuesday evening in October, was that the betrayal Marcus had committed was not only intimate. She had found it by accident, the way most important things are found. A credit card statement in the wrong email thread, a number that did not match the savings account they held jointly. A second look, then a third, then a spreadsheet Nadia built quietly over 4 evenings at the kitchen table, while Marcus watched television in the next room. Over 14 months, he had been diverting small, regular amounts from their shared savings into an account she had no access to. The individual transfers were modest enough to avoid attention. Together, they added up to something that made her sit back in her chair and breathe very slowly through her nose. She had not confronted him, not because she was afraid, but because she had immediately called Kofi, who had told her in his calm, level voice that confronting him now would only cause him to move the money, cover the trail, and make everything harder to address legally. So she waited. She collected documentation. She said nothing. And then, she came home early on a Tuesday, and the decision was made for her on a different timeline than she had planned, and she walked out of her own apartment and let Marcus believe the reason was only heartbreak. It was simpler that way, and it kept him still. Kofi handled the legal process over the following 18 months. It was methodical and unspectacular, filings and evidence, and a private mediation that Nadia attended by phone from Harrowfield, sitting at her kitchen table with a cup of tea. The settlement, when it came, was fair. Marcus signed without it going to court, which Nadia had suspected he would. He had too much to lose from public scrutiny, and the evidence was too clear. She did not tell anyone. There was no announcement, no moment of public vindication. She simply deposited the settlement into her account, took a weekend trip to the coast with her mother, and came home to the flat above the bakery, feeling something close to complete. Life in Harrowfield suited her in ways she had not anticipated. She built a small private practice working with adults recovering from neurological injuries. Careful, meaningful work that required patience, and paid close attention to the kind of progress that did not happen quickly. She had 2 good colleagues who became friends. She began cooking properly, not just for sustenance. She planted herbs on the windowsill next to the succulent. And, about 2 years after her arrival, she met Daniel at a book sale in the community hall on a Saturday morning. He was holding a copy of a novel she had read twice, and reaching for the same one she was. They apologized at exactly the same moment, and then laughed at exactly the same moment. And she thought, standing in a dusty community hall on an ordinary Saturday, that some things really do announce themselves after all. It was Priya who found her, 4 years after the Tuesday in October. Priya had become a journalist, features and investigations mostly, and she was covering a regional healthcare conference in Harrowfield when she saw a name on the speaker program that stopped her mid-scroll. Nadia Osei, Harrowfield Neurological Clinic, presenting on adaptive rehabilitation outcomes. She stared at the screen for a moment. Then she typed a message. Nadia, it's Priya. I think I'm about to watch you give a talk. Please tell me it's you. The reply came 40 minutes later, just as Priya was settling into her seat in the conference hall. It's me. Come say hello after. I'm the one at the front, trying not to look nervous. She was not nervous. She spoke clearly, and without notes, for 22 minutes, about patient-centered recovery timelines, and several people in the audience wrote things down. Priya watched from the 3rd row and felt something loosen in her chest that she had not realized was tight. They met in the lobby afterward and hugged for a long moment without speaking. Then Priya pulled back and looked at her. You look well, she said. I am, Nadia said simply. They found a cafe 2 streets from the conference center and sat with their coffees for nearly 2 hours. Priya asked careful questions. Nadia answered honestly, without bitterness, without the flatness that comes from a story told too many times. She told Priya about the flat above the bakery, about Dr. Anand and the river runs, and the slow work of building a practice from nothing. She told her about Daniel, who was at home that weekend regrouting the bathroom tiles and listening to a football match on the radio. He sounds very normal, Priya said. He is, Nadia said. I spent 6 years with someone exciting. Normal turns out to be remarkable. Priya smiled. Then she set down her cup and said, more carefully, Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why didn't you tell anyone? After what Marcus did, why did you just go? You let him tell the whole story. People believed him. Nadia was quiet for a moment, turning her cup in her hands. Which part? She said. The affair or the money? Priya blinked. What money? So Nadia told her. She told her about the spreadsheet and the late evenings at the kitchen table, about Kofi's advice to stay quiet and wait, about the settlement that had come through on a gray Wednesday afternoon while she was eating soup. She told the story the way she had lived it, without drama, step by step, each decision made with a clear head. When she finished, Priya was quiet for a moment. "So you already knew before you walked in that door," she said. "I knew there was a legal process underway. I did not know what I was going to find when I opened that door." Nadia paused. "I had not planned for that part. That part was just Tuesday, being Tuesday. And you still didn't fight back. Publicly, I mean. You didn't tell anyone what he had done." Nadia looked at her steadily. "I told everyone who needed to know. My lawyer, my brother, the mediator, the bank." She picked up her coffee. Marcus knew exactly what he had done, and exactly what it had cost him. That felt like enough. "Wasn't it lonely?" Priya said. "Carrying all of that and letting people think..." "Letting people think I fell apart?" Nadia said. "Yes, for a while. And then I remembered that the people who actually knew me either understood or eventually asked. And the people who believed the other version without asking," she shrugged, lightly. "That was useful information about them." Priya laughed, a short, rueful sound. "You haven't changed." "I've changed enormously," Nadia said, smiling. "I'm just not dramatic about it." Before they left, Priya asked one more question. "Would you want to set the record straight? I'm not suggesting an article. I'm just asking. Do you want people to know?" Nadia thought about it for a genuine moment, her coat already on, her bag over her shoulder. Outside the window, the afternoon light was low and gold and perfectly ordinary. "The record is straight," she said. "It's just in the right places." She paid for both coffees. Priya protested, and Nadia waved her off with the ease of someone who had long since decided not to argue about small things. They hugged again at the door, and Priya watched her walk down the street, unhurried, hands in her pockets, turning left at the corner toward the conference center to collect her things. Priya stood there for a moment after she had gone. She thought about Marcus, who as far as she knew was still in the old city, still telling a version of events that had sounded true only because it was the only version on offer. She thought about all the small verdicts people had handed down in Nadia's absence, the quiet assumptions, the misplaced sympathies, the second-hand stories that had calcified into fact. And then she thought about Nadia at the front of a conference hall, speaking without notes, and a flat above a bakery, and herbs on a windowsill, and a man at home regrouting bathroom tiles and listening to the match. She thought that some people fight to be understood, and some people simply go and build the life, and that perhaps there is a particular kind of strength in knowing which one you are. She turned up her collar against the October air, the same month, she realized, as the Tuesday that had started all of this, and walked back to the conference center to file her story, which was about healthcare and rehabilitation, and had nothing to do with any of this. The truth, Priya thought as she walked, had been out for years. It had simply been living quietly, above a bakery, getting on with things.